Welcome everyone, it's Suzanne and Margaret again, and today we're going to talk a little bit about AI because it can be a little bit scary for some. We've got Khaled here and he's also he has joined us today, so whether we have much participation or not will depend on what we start talking about. So beyond the hype is what we're talking about today. Beyond the hype. Everybody's panicking. Well, not everyone, but some people are panicking about what they're doing with AI. But as we've talked before, Margaret, we have talked about how project managers can use AI. So I'm going to throw it to you in a second. But we're going to do some actual practical stuff. Now, Khaled, do you want to say hello just before we can start?
Hello, Mark, and hello, Susan. Hello to everyone.
Hi.
Excellent. So, like I said, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, please just let us know. So, Margaret, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. So
You're always
excited, super
fantastic.
excited to talk about this topic because it makes our life so much easier.
It sure
So-
does. Okay, so beyond the hype, and I do have a few technical things today, so we'll see if we can share. But if I can't share the presentations, remember to subscribe to the channel, and the presentation link will be in the description of the YouTube video when it's uploaded. Okay, practical AI for project managers, where AI adds value across the project lifecycle. So, Margaret, let's go.
Let's go. So I've got here 4 different areas where it can add, additional assistance with the project life cycle. So one is planning, the other is risk, the other is comms, and the other is contracts. And all 3 just make it super easy for project managers to assist with getting deliverables completed.
Now, the contract one really surprises me, Margaret, so I cannot wait to hear about that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So let's start with the first one, which is planning. So with planning and sequencing and scheduling, I mean, AI helps with basically providing you with a schedule, and especially if you have connected and dependent tasks and activities, it helps to, predict what the schedule is going to be or what time is going to finish, especially with, connected and I guess dependent activities. When you're looking at something that is sort of, I guess, single unit or single business case focused, single business focused, then it's probably not a lot of stuff that is connected and sequential. But when you're looking at, I call it an umbrella because you're looking at multiple business units. You may be looking at finance, basically legal, the actual business unit itself. And they're all interdependent and all interconnected. Then you will need to look at different things and sequencing all of the tasks and activities. And so AI will help to predict what the future timeline is going to be.
That's amazing. I mean, that literally is amazing, isn't it?
I mean,
okay.
I mean, typically in the past, I would have used Microsoft Project, which is a really great dependent tool, and putting in your little activities in there and putting in your sequencing and dependent activities. I'm not sure if that is going to go in September this year. I've heard rumors that it may actually be disappearing. So
Project.
This is...
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but that would be quite sad if it is, because that initially, putting in the activities and putting in the dependencies in there help predict the future timeline. Yes. But I guess, at a high level, especially if you're presenting to senior stakeholders and the steering committee, then actually having high level sequential activities and helping to predict what the future timeline without having to do this in your head is a great way to actually get AI to predict for you.
So, I mean, I've got to say that I hate Microsoft Project. Hate it. I've always hated it. And because I've always done big programs where I've got a number of projects,
Yeah.
I don't use it. I've never used it, only if I absolutely have to. So I've always worked with Excel. I put everything into Excel to start with. But then the last few years, I've actually used Smartsheet. I find that very easy, and then I can extract it and I can do all sorts of things with it. But either one of those or any of those things, you're saying AI can have a look. It's almost like a review of your schedule.
That's right.
Wow, that does me out of a job.
It can actually then, I guess, predict what the future date's going to be, or if you add in your high-level activities, say these are all sequential, each one's going to take 3 months, 2 months, and then have an overall timeline. You could almost then download it and put it into a PowerPoint. You could probably, I like to use Claude to create PowerPoint, so you could probably almost ask Claude to do a high-level timeline PowerPoint and have it ready. Almost.
And for those that don't know what Claude is, tell us what Claude is.
So Claude is one of the artificial intelligence tools, or AI tool. I use that as well as ChatGPT, as well as Google Perplexity. There's also Microsoft Copilot, which I don't really use that much. And so any of these tools I like to use for different things. For creating PowerPoints, I like to use Claude because I think it's fantastic in creating PowerPoints.
Yeah. Because I use for PowerPoints, because I've got a YouTube channel and I've also got a Wix website, I've got AI in there as well, and it will outline a lot of stuff for me, including the PowerPoint slides. But I've not actually used it for a specific project currently. So interested to know how that works. Now, Margaret, I'm noticing that you've got the zebra stripes on you. So I'm going to I'm going to go back to share. If you want to just turn off for 1 second and fix that, it's up to you. But hopefully I'm sharing this slide with you again now. My screen's jumping around like a mad thing. But dependency mapping surfaces hidden dependencies across work streams by scanning project documentation. Okay, now we're not putting this in a scanner. What are we doing? The old-fashioned scanner, like a real typewriter. No, but you know what I'm saying. We're not doing that, are we? How is this actually working?
The dependency.
Yes. Yeah, dependency mapping services hidden dependencies across work streams by scanning project documentation. Now, how's that working?
So I know I have done this with Claude. It analyzes different documents, and basically, depending what you're going to ask it, if you're asking it to analyze, so I would ask it to analyze different documents, and if you're going to ask it to do a high-level schedule in a PowerPoint, it will start crunching all of those attachments and analyzing each one, and then creating a high-level timeline and creating the PowerPoint at the same time. It's actually amazing.
And so you don't have to put tags or something in the documents?
It automatically basically analyzes each document. I have used it to, for example, I'll give you an example. I've had to basically get different quotes for different pricing for different, like I had to do it for an event, for example.
Yeah.
And I had 5 hotels and I had quotes from each one, and each hotel had different quotes for different things. So what Claude did was I put in all the hotel quotes and I said, analyze this, do a summary, and what it did was it had each hotel on the top, and then on the side it had each comparable item on each of the quotes, and I was able to then analyze the document and check, for example, food, how much was food across all the hotels, how much was the room hire, how much was the audio visual, how much was the drinks package, and then you're able to compare all of the quotes
Yeah.
for all of the documents, and it summarizes it for you in one succinct document. Now, the caveat is with that is, of course, with AI, you need to check everything. And so you have to be careful in that you can't just assume that it's correct first go when you basically pick up the document. And so I had to check line by line, and I did each hotel at a time, and I checked each hotel, the quote and each of the numbers to make sure that it had actually put the correct number in each of the sections, because one of the hotels was mixed up. So that's why you need to check everything. But pretty much it had all of the, watch out for the fine print. For example, when I was looking at it, no glitter, no whatever, and it will charge you extra for cleaning. So things like that. And it actually put it on the bottom of each of the hotels, what you had to watch out for, like comments, car parking, availability. So it was able to, in a summary, pretty much, do a comparative document, which was amazing.
Well, so, when we're project managing things, I mean, I often find that the major thing that I'm doing is talking to people and getting status updates and things like that. It's the upfront work that you do at the start of the project, which takes all the time with this documentation. And I don't usually have a lot of trouble starting a document. I just actually start writing and then it starts coming to me. That's my technique. But I have noticed using AI, even in the Teams AI, which I use quite often, it will give you a head start. So if you're out there and you're having trouble getting started with an executive summary or something about your project, not necessarily even a presentation, ask AI to do it. Like if you're in Teams, just go in there and do it, and it will give you a head start. That's what I find. It's really helpful.
So in this example, if you are doing a business case, for example, and you've had to get quotes for different software vendors or quotes for different things, and you're doing a comparative analysis, pretty much you can get it done pretty quickly by feeding in these quotes into the system and allowing it to do a summary, table to be able to compare each of the different quotes for different things so that you are easily able to see it on a page or see it at a glance.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, the next thing that you're talking about too is what if scenarios. Models the schedule impact of a delay, which you talked a little bit about before. A scope change, wonderful, because we've all had to do that in the past and done the evaluation of a scope change. A resource swap in seconds rather than a manual replan. And whilst this doesn't sound like much, I know in the past I've worked for some big consulting companies, and what they would find was the scope change on a big program actually costs money apart from what you're going to charge them. Just to do the evaluation can take days to a week to evaluate a big scope change.
Yes.
So this is going to be quite a change, isn't it? Potentially.
Well, if you're able to articulate what the scope change is going to be, how much it's going to cost, then you can just feed it into AI and say it's going to cost this much, it's going to delay it by 3 weeks, including leave time of a week if people are on leave, and then it will recalculate this schedule, recalculate the budget or the additional cost that's going to be charged to the budget if you have contingency, and say, so you're able to quickly get approval for the scope change, the cost change, the schedule change, basically.
Wow. So just another question, and Khaled, you might have questions too, because I certainly have. But when you're talking about we can put all these things in and, then it'll update the budget and the schedule and things like that, is it looking through a folder that's shared? How is it doing that? Or are you feeding that additional information in each time?
You'd have to tell it to say,
sure.
I've just received a scope change. The budget is this, sometimes it remembers if you've used the same AI model.
Yeah.
I know
train
that the budget was whatever this,
Yeah.
and if you're saying it's going to cost this, it can say, well, this will recalculate your total amount spent for this, and you're going to have to use contingency as part of this scope change, or you're going to have to ask for more money, especially if it's more than your
Yeah.
contingency amount.
Yeah. Yes, because we've always had to do all that ourselves, which is okay to
That's
do.
right.
But then you've got to update everything, which
That's
that is a
right.
saving. That's going to be a
That's
saving.
right.
Khaled,
That's
how are
right.
you going? Have you got any questions?
I'm going all right. Just probably something came to mind when Marjorie talked about the scope change. Would it be? I'm just thinking, would it be possible if to ask AI to not do the scope, like not do the analysis, but maybe calculate the resourcing needed for that scope change in order to maybe rebalance or recalibrate the program or across that piece of work if the scope change has been approved, was approved, for example. Would it be able to do that, just to make sure that you're not doing a scope change, but then later on you will need to add more resources or change resources or anything like this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the scope change would need to be worked out and prioritized. So if it's higher priority, then what's the work that's left to be done? And I have had this happen as well in projects that I've done, where the scope change, the changes are needed like now before any other work is completed, because also that other work that's to be completed is sequential, and you need the scope change to be done first before you continue to do any further work on the software development or web page, etc., that you're doing, because it needs that change to be implemented firstly before you do any other work. So yes, you would have to work out whether it's a priority versus whether it's a nice to have, and you do it at the end.
So we've still got to instruct it, but I'm just thinking about, the scope changes, particularly when we're on a project, we are generally wanting a BA to do, an evaluation or an estimate.
Yes.
And we might want technical people as well.
Yes.
So be interesting to sort of think a little bit about that, how that might work. And we don't have to do it in this session, but we might have another session, Margaret, about how AI is going to affect BAs, because from where I'm sort of sitting, that's one area that's potentially going to be an issue. Okay, so the next thing which surprises me as well is the risk registers. And a lot of people have trouble writing risk. We've talked about this before. Please subscribe to the channel if you're one of those people, and have a look at the resources. And the other thing that people don't like doing on projects is doing a risk assessment or doing a risk workshop. People will groan, not the risk workshop.
Yeah.
So how can we mitigate some of that by using AI?
Okay, so this is really good. So the first thing I would do is I would ask the AI tool, for this type of project, be specific. You're doing this, for example, you're creating a website, you're creating forms, you're creating a client portal, whatever you're doing, you put it into AI saying, doing this, can you please provide, in this industry, can you please provide what sort of risks would I need to look out for this sort of project?
Mm-hmm.
And
Early
it will
warnings.
give you a base, it will give you a base risk register.
Right.
Okay, but then I would actually review that risk register, look at additional things that you can use from, and I call it analogous, which is other types of projects that you've had in that organization, and see what risks you had, for example, from prior organizations or from other project managers, include some of those, and then you basically have a starting point where you can share this with your group, with your team, to say, hey, let's do a workshop. I've thought of some risks that I think would be relevant for this project. Have a think of what other risks do you think would be necessary for us to look at and to watch and to mitigate. Basically, there's different types of risk register response. One is mitigate, one is eliminate, basically avoid, changing the scope. I've had that before as well, changing the scope of the project to get rid of a total risk. Transferring the risk where you actually, get insurance for a particular thing, which I've also done before, transferring the risk. So then you would ask for what other risks do you think, and this is when you'd have your workshop and talk about other risks to be added to the risk register. But it's actually a great starting point and a really great conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Conversation.
Yeah, because like I said, people don't like doing it. They generally groan, and then they don't write the risk properly. They write it as an issue, which also drives me insane.
Oh, yes,
or
that's right.
Or a story, a whole story. No, we don't want that either.
Yes.
So potentially workshops could become a little bit more interesting too, because if you can generate that response almost on the fly by using AI, the meeting or the workshop's likely to be a little bit more energetic and a little bit more interesting. Risk managers out there, please do not panic after I've said that, because I know that won't be something that you might be looking forward to. But for project managers, it's a great tool for us.
Exactly, especially because it expedites your starting. It's always, like you said, Suzanne, it's always harder for you to start planning, setting up risk registers, extracting the roles and responsibilities from business cases, the risk register from the business case, and things like that, the high-level plan from the business case, and then you actually then include the detail in the sequencing and the plan.
Yeah.
So all of that is actually quite a bit of work that you do up front.
Now I'm just going to show this again, because you've got a couple of things there where you're talking about, we've talked about the baseline risk register, likelihood and impact prompts, and early warning signals, and you're talking a little bit about flagging status reports. Now that's also an interesting thing, and flagging status reports and meeting notes that echo that language, because again, it's one of those things that a lot of people groan about. Oh, I've got to update. Well, again, if you're out there, you're probably doing them wrong if you're groaning, but that's another story. Now, early warning signals, can you give us a little bit more information about that and how AI is going to help us, Margaret?
Yeah, so especially if you're doing some meeting notes and someone says, oh, I'm concerned about this person being away so much. And so that's already a flag or an early warning signal from something that you've captured, which is your meeting notes, your status report, especially if they're a key person risk.
Yeah.
And then of course that translates into your risk register, and especially if it is a very key person that is required to do an important piece of work, then I would actually include it in your status report. And if it's a high risk, high impact, then it goes red, and it would definitely be included in your status report.
Another really important thing, the status report, very, very important. And the amount of project managers out there that don't do their status reports, it's way too high. If you're a project sponsor and you're not getting regular status reports, then you've got a problem already. You've got a problem. But if this AI can start scooping things up, then almost the project sponsor could ask AI a few things as well if they've got the status reports. And if that's a possibility?
Yes, I don't know whether, I tend to find sponsors are very limited in time. They've usually got a day job and they're
Yeah.
probably on the board of many projects, not just your project,
Yeah.
depending on, you know, the project. And I find that, I don't know, they may have time, but they're probably waiting for you to actually brief them on that.
Yeah. To do it.
So
Yeah.
if they have time, yeah, sure, they'll probably go into AI and say, you know, what do
Yeah.
you think of this status? Or, you know, prompt AI to
Yes.
provide them with hidden messages or gaps.
So I would say to project managers out there, if I was your project sponsor and I did that, I would be very wary if I was you because you really don't want me doing it if I'm your project sponsor. You really want that to give them the information.
Yes,
and what we're talking about
exactly.
today is like an ancillary help for project managers. It's not taking away from what we're doing. It's actually enhancing what we're doing and saving time. So meeting minutes. Okay, now this is another good one, Margaret. Turns a transcript or recording into structured minutes. And I use that all the time. I do use it even when we do these sessions. I go through the transcript and it's amazing what you can pull out of the transcript or what you can get AI to pull out of the transcript. But I'm not getting it to do decisions and actions and things like that, but I'm still pulling things out of it. So that's also a really good thing for comms. I mean, you can start developing some comms by using that.
Exactly. And especially if you're getting actions and decisions, I mean, they translate directly into your RAID register. Risks, you know, issues, decisions, and dependencies.
Yeah.
And so actions. And so I would actually start, you know, asking AI to, you know, update your RAID register and things like that. But it tends to, you'd have to put in the latest RAID register into AI to be able to update the action. And you'd have to check it as well, because sometimes it hallucinates and makes stuff up where something might be an issue when it's really a risk, or something might be a risk and it's really an issue. So a risk is it hasn't happened yet. An issue is it has happened. And so you need to address it and fix it. So that's the difference, really. So you need to make sure that it's putting it in the right section of your RAID register.
So just another question, Margaret. You may not be able to answer this, but for those watching out there, I'm sure there'll be people out there like software engineers that I've worked with in the past who will say, oh, well, we use Confluence for all that stuff. And so they've got all the stuff hidden in Confluence, which they could still use AI to extract the information. But that, you know, when we're talking RAID, they might not be fully understanding what we're talking about, because remembering a lot of agile teams are out there doing this stuff and in some cases not being fed up to a project manager. Project managers should be across this, but I just know that things are happening a little bit strangely out there currently. Khaled, have you got any questions as well? Just throw to you.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to because I was at some point in time I did a little research just to know what tools around, AI tools around to do the meeting transcription and you know, like categorizing action points and key points and so that. So maybe a question to Margaret: do you like, in terms of tools, have you tried some or one of these tools and something you found that acts better than the others? Because I looked at tools, for example, like Copilot, like Fathom, like and others as well, Otter. But it's just and once you start looking, there's heaps, like, you know, heaps. You will find heaps, and there is one. Each tool has a certain maybe edge or certain competence. But I thought maybe to put that question just to see if there's something around that we should know of.
I can't say that there's one tool better than the other, I think, for meeting notes, but I will say that you would have to actually vet each transcript, because, for example, I've used Zoom AI transcript and it's I mean, you have to check every single thing. Sometimes it doesn't understand, someone's name, and it just makes something up, and it just puts something in there where it thinks it's this, and it might be a thing, and it's actually a person. So you've actually got to check, each of the transcripts, and sometimes it gets muddled up. And I've worked with meeting notes where the first 2/3 of the meeting hasn't really been recorded properly, but the last third has been recorded in word for word, and it's 2 or 3 pages worth of notes. So it's actually misguided in terms of the whole meeting transcript. So you've got to be wary of that, and I would actually make sure that if you have an agenda, that you yourself are keeping tabs on some of the important decisions, actions. Those two, especially decisions and actions, are really key at a meeting. And if anything, if I don't actually record, what was said or who said what, the decisions and the actions are definite things that I take away when I, finish the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and I'm not running a current project at the moment, but for me, I've found, like I said, the YouTube AI, it works really well for presentations and for ideas. So if there's a concept that I want to explore, and this could be on a project as well, somebody comes up with a concept that they want to explore, and I had this on a project that I did a couple of years ago. The software engineers developed a concept, and I asked them to develop a pitch pack, which was just a couple of slides. Now, they did those from scratch, but these are the sort of things that I would put into the YouTube AI, because it's looking at concepts. If I'm doing more of a document, I tend to just use what's in Teams. Because I'm a pretty good writer anyway. We all are sort of at my age, because we didn't have AI before, right? So I will do that, and then I will just edit it, like on the blog, right? I'd use that, or I will use the website one. But I have heard that there are specific AI tools that are better for some applications than others. I don't know if that was what you were asking, Caleb.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Suzanne. Yeah, some
right.
tools are better than others in specific aspects of transcription or capturing points and all that.
Yeah.
Well, which is important to you because as a BA, you are speaking to usually real people. Also, I guess researching other documents and observations.
Yep.
So you want something that's going to be quite accurate.
Absolutely. Otherwise, there would be blind spots in the discussions or the actions, or and traceability as well. So,
Yep, exactly. Margaret, let me just have a look where we are. I've just taken that slide down. Meeting minutes, status reporting, action tracking, which you talked about, and then the next slide, and we're almost got about 20 minutes or so left, 15, 20 minutes. Statement of work analysis. Oh, I love this one. This one I love. So talk us through this one, Margaret.
So I've had the unfortunate experience where I've had dodgy vendors that are changing line items and saying that they've updated the statement of work or updated the terms. And they have done that, but then they've gone back on stuff that I've said it can't be changed, and they've gone back and changed that as well.
Gosh. Oh.
So that's why I say dodgy. And so when you do a comparative and say these two documents are, one version is the older one version is the newer one, what are the differences between the documents? It would do that in minutes, in seconds.
Right.
Whereas I've had to manually do that before. You can do it through Word, but if they give you a PDF version, you have to convert it.
That's right.
And then do the original Word, and then do a comparative, and then it highlights the different areas that have changed. But with doing it in AI, I mean, AI will automatically give you all the changes for you anyway. So it makes life a lot easier
Yeah.
to say, you know, what are the changes? What, you know, please list out the differences, and then it will be able to do it for you. And so that is so important, because you don't want to be stuck with a document and signed when things have changed. And yes, the things that you've asked to be changed have changed, but so have other things that you've said they can't be changed, and yet the vendor has
That
gone
is
in.
bad. That is so bad. And you mentioned, you know, whilst we still have version control,
Yes.
if you're versioning and you've got a lot of documents across a program like I've done, like a portfolio of projects, I've
Yeah.
possibly got, you know, 6 to 12 documents going around at any one time across a whole raft of projects.
Yeah.
With a whole lot of stakeholders that also have to be involved. And I'm talking more now, not specifically statement of work, but the analysis part, you know, of what has changed. Is this change actually right in comparison to what we're doing? Normally, the project manager will work that out. You know, does that make sense? Is it within the scope? Is that something that AI could do? Because I think you mentioned a bit about scope before. Looking at that version against the original scope, even, is that something?
Yeah, I mean, certain things that when I was going through some of the documents, the vendor had done changes because it was in his favour,
Yeah.
and not the customer's favour, which was us being the customer. And obviously I wasn't too happy with it, and I said no. And I said, from now on, I make the changes. You tell me what you want included. And I just didn't allow him to make any further changes, because it was just taking so much of my time to do comparative analysis between the two documents, converting them to Word and then doing that. Whereas
that is
with
tricky.
this, it is.
That is tricky.
And then, so with this, it would automatically tell you straight away what's changed.
Yeah.
And therefore, you've got your list of changes. But something that the project manager would still need to do would be to check the milestone work has been done, and then the milestone payments can be done, whereas AI can't really do that. I mean,
No.
Because you're still checking to make sure that the quality of the work and the work has actually been completed before the milestone payment is made. And you also want to check that, you know, sometimes some vendors will ask for a lot of money up front, but you have to be realistic. If you do that, you have the vendor has to be someone that you really trust, or you say no, like I have done, and say no, you have to provide some work up front before I start to give you a milestone payment.
Yeah.
And so that is something that AI won't be able to check, that has the work been done satisfactorily to your, you know, satisfaction to your stakeholders' satisfaction, and can you make that milestone payment?
So we're not saying that the project manager absolves all responsibility here.
Yeah.
We're saying that AI is going to help us as project managers to do some of this grunt work that can be quite time consuming, you know, particularly if you've got a lot of projects on the go. So we talked a little bit about the consistency checks, which is really important. I find a lot of people put the statement of work or the contract away when it's after it's signed. And for me, these are living documents. And I have done projects in the past where we had a contract almost on everybody's desk. We had them in big red folders, so they were printed out. These were big projects, a lot of money, and the contract was in use all the time. So I had two people that did contract updates. So, I mean, that's how it was probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't have AI. It was quite manual. But what I'm saying is the contract is a living document, which sounds weird because you do sign it off, but it's got to be visible. You can't put it away. And if this, you know, if AI can just even look at it every now and again and say, well, are we still up to date with what we had signed? as a comparative analysis, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so definitely, I think it will assist the project manager in terms of saving time, in terms of doing that comparative analysis for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd spend hours going through these documents and looking at every
Me too.
change.
Yeah.
I think it's so one thing to say, Margaret, about the SAO documents. Probably Susanna reminded me about this. One project I worked on before, we did I did some discovery on the environment, and then we talked to a vendor and we signed a SAO with them for probably 12 months or so, like activities across 12 months. And then, of course, there was milestones and deliverables across the 12 months. And I'm surprised, Suzanne, you said this document, like some people sign it and put it on the shelf
They
or
do.
file it somewhere, because I had to review this document
Yep.
across the 12 months
Yeah.
because there are different deliverables, different
Yes.
specs for the deliverables. So I had to make sure what the
Yes.
vendor is giving us is actually that what was stated in the SAO. And of course, there
Yeah.
were some discrepancies here and then, and we had to go back and forth. But then without having the SAO and having a look at it, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know what was missing.
No, you wouldn't know. And, you know, they can be quite tricky, some of these vendors. Sorry out there, vendors. I've worked on the vendor side as well. But, you know, if you are now, and going back to Agile, if you've got a vendor that is using their own Confluence system to monitor things, just be very aware that those documents really should be shared and they should be version controlled. And like Margaret was saying, you know, they can start adding and taking things away, which you wouldn't think would be possible. But certainly if you're allowing your vendor to work in their own environment on shared documents, just be aware because stuff does happen.
Yeah. So just going back to that. So once something has been signed, that's really the baseline, right?
Yes.
If there are any changes, then that's change control and it needs to be approved, because any change that's added, I know really changes the cost, changes the timeline, and you need to be wary that, you know, if the scope changes, that's what happens, and you really need to get an approval for that.
You really do. But these are some project management 101 concepts.
Yes.
But we got plenty of stuff on the YouTube channel around that. Now, Margaret, the next thing, this is the second last slide that we've got, so we need to move along.
Yep.
More ways AI supports day-to-day PM work. And we talked a bit about these things. Lessons learned mining. I've got to tell you, I hate doing that. I hate having to do the lessons learned.
I love doing that.
No, I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's so good.
So I like this one.
So lessons learned, I mean, I love workshopping this and, you know, talking to the stakeholders about, you know, different aspects of what can be learned. And the stuff that's good as well, that what went well, needs to be recorded as well, because you don't want to forget that stuff that's done really well, because you want to be able to continue that for other projects. But stuff that you can learn from, usually, and a lot of it is usually around people, and it's around communication. I've found in the past they're the biggest, I guess, buckets where you find that the biggest lessons learned can be amongst your team members, amongst your stakeholders, and then carried over to other projects as well. But especially if something hasn't gone too well, and you'll get that probably from the meeting notes. I guess it's something that probably AI can capture and start creating a lessons learned file and then adding to it.
Yeah, well, that's a good start for me because I don't like doing them. I like patting people on the back, but doing the register, no. So, you know, we've had so many registers as project managers that there's a lot of things to manage concurrently quite often. Now, resource forecasting we did talk a little bit about. Flags likely resource capacity gaps by comparing the plan against team availability. this has got to save huge amounts of time.
Yeah, especially when, I mean, I know that I've had to do forecasting for budget, but also if you've got a lot of resources and you need to forecast whether, I don't know, someone's you know what, I've had so many times when people leave and you've always got to then backfill that person and get that resource gap addressed straight away. And then you're forever basically interviewing people and getting someone on board.
Yeah.
And especially if there's a bit of a gap where someone's left and it takes a while before you get someone on board, then there might be a gap where you need to either get approval for a delay, timeline delay, or get someone else to fill in the gap. So, yeah.
Okay. And look, we're not saying here that some existing tools that people have out there are defunct. There is, we talked about Microsoft Project before, resource leveling and resource forecasting and all that sort of stuff. Used to happen in Microsoft Project. It happens in Confluence and some other things as well, but it all relies on everybody putting the right information in. And what we're sort of talking a bit about today is at a project manager level, how can we look across our project quite quickly and get AI to help us? So we're not talking necessarily about, replacing things. But, if you'd like to get angry out there and write it in the comments, that's good. But let me know if that resonates with you. Now, budget variance checks, scans cost reports for variances, and drafts a plain language explanation. Now, what's this about, Margaret? This is not change control now you're talking about? Or is it?
Yeah, so I did talk briefly about, for example, if there is a scope change and you need a variance check and you don't have enough contingency.
Right.
So you would have to basically either get approval for additional funding, which I have had to do in the past because it was poorly estimated like for example, and then I've had to stuff that we thought was going to take this long is actually now going to take this long. It's going to cost more money. And so that would be a variance and you would need to get approval for that variance. So
right. Okay. Now I'm just going to move to the next slide, Margaret, because this is now the wrap up because we need to wrap up. Using AI responsibly, which I sort of just, we were just touching on then. Okay. It's not replacing you.
Yeah.
Okay. Not yet anyway.
Yeah. So I did mention the first one which was I gave the example of the different, cost estimates, say when I was looking at hotel to book a hotel for an event. So you do need to check things, especially if you ask AI to summarize something in a table. You would have to check each of the line items, which I did. Obviously, once protecting confidential data, even though you might have in your settings, don't train or use my personal data to train the AI model, and you have that turned off.
Yeah.
Once any sensitive data moves from your computer to an AI model, it's out there in AI land.
Yeah. Good to know. I mean, that's good to keep in mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously the last point, verify before you rely, which is what I just mentioned. You've really got to check things and make sure that it's accurate. That's in anything, meeting note minutes. If you're doing comparative, if you're asking it to do a summary, you need to check each of the line items and basically anything. Even if you ask it to do a PowerPoint, I always check every slide, check every word.
Yes.
So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Margaret. That's been an eye opener for me. Khaled, have you got any questions before we wrap up, or comments?
No, I think that was pretty good walkthrough. So yeah, thanks for that.
No worries.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
so much for joining us. So we're going to wrap up now. Thanks again, Margaret. Margaret prepared the slide deck. I'm sorry about the technical issues that I've had today with my mouse going completely mental. It's got a life of its own today. But thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel. And remember, if you've got any questions, go to the website, which will be in the details below, and ask a mentor. And that will be myself and Margaret. We are the mentors, and we're going to soon be starting an Ask a Mentor clinic. So we'll have clinics hopefully on site. So again, if you're out there and you need help, come to the clinic. We'll diagnose it and we'll sort it for you. Bye, Margaret. Bye, Caleb.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.